Hi everybody, it's Richard here again and welcome to another video. This is my response to Shannon D's video, favourite artists in music. Now, a couple of months ago I did a top 100 rundown of my favourite artists, so I thought I would approach this a slightly different way and look at the foundation of my collection, where it all started, how it all started and who influenced me. So it really all started in around 1980, because in 1979 this guy here, yes, that's my brother Garth, he got for Christmas a brand new music system, and so I then inherited his little crappy Ferguson record player turntable. So I started listening to music again. Now, I did have a few singles and a couple of LPs back in the early 70s, but from the mid 70s to really the end of the 70s I was more interested in bike riding and skateboarding and so forth, and eating as many sweets as I could. So because he gave me that, I dug out an old LP, and it was this one here. And it was T-Rex Ride a White Swan. It's an old Music for Pleasure album, and I absolutely loved this. It took me a while to listen to. It was a case of lying on your bed, playing it and playing it and playing it and playing it until it really sunk in. It's like something you don't do anymore. You listen to an album once or twice, file it away and never play it again. This was constantly played, and because of that I went out and bought everything I could by Mark Bowie. Now, in those days a lot of his discography was out of print, so I could only get the Fly years. I could never get the EMI years apart from a couple of compilations. Now, this is where the influence comes in from my brother, and I have to give him credit for it, because I asked him, okay, I'm stuck, I can't get any more Mark Bowie, who do I listen to next? And he directed me towards David Bowie. And this is the first David Bowie album I bought, and this is the exact same copy, and that took me on the big Bowie trip, which I still have today. I still have the Mark Bowie trip. As I say, these are the foundations and these will always remain. And so as I was doing that, my brother was a huge fan of the Beatles, and he managed to buy a copy of Abbey Road on green vinyl, which is worth a bit now. So he gave me his old copy, which is this, and I played this to death. And he also bought an extra copy of Plastic Ono Band because he thought his copy was scratched, but it wasn't really, and so he gave me this. So believe it or not, John Lennon was my favourite Beatle in 1981, and now these were given to me before John Lennon was actually killed. So I wasn't a huge Paul McCartney fan. I actually got to like Paul McCartney through myself and through the pop hits of the 80s, and then exploring his collection, and that's when McCartney took over Lennon for me. But another artist that's part of my collection, or part of the foundations, is this guy here, Bob Dylan. Now, I was listening to Bob Dylan in 1979, and this was the one that I really liked. Now, when people, my friends were listening to the disco hits like Ring My Bell by the Bee Gees, or by Anita Ward, or Tragedy by the Bee Gees, I was listening to things like Talking World War III Blues, which I had taped, you know, and playing it in front of them, and they were looking at me as if I had two heads. But I really liked this, but because my brother had all the Bob Dylan albums, I asked him, who else is there similar that I could buy? And so then he said, these guys, Simon Garfunkel, and then that was it. I was hooked. This is the first Simon Garfunkel album. Now, we did have a greatest hits that my mother had, which I really listened to first, and I thought it was brilliant. And then I went out and got all the Simon Garfunkel albums and the Paul Simon albums. But I must say about our family, as well, me and my brother, any albums that we did buy, we shared. Okay, they belonged to whoever bought them, but if you wanted to take them and listen to them in your own room, you could, no problem. And I think he took advantage of that a little bit, because for one Christmas he thought he was going to buy me a fantastic album for Christmas. Now I was hoping, actually I was hoping for ABBA's Greatest Hits 2. And I think it was Christmas 1980, and he bought me John Wesley Harding. And the only reason he bought me this is because he never had it. And he knew rightly that I would give this up eventually, so it would go into his collection. Sly, crafty bugger, but still, I held on to it for a while, but eventually he did get it. Now if we go back to the Beatles again, he did have a couple of Rolling Stones albums. Now he had all the Beatles stuff, but he only had a couple. He had the Roll Gold album, Exile on Main Street, and Black and Blue. I think he had Emotional Rescue as well. And I said to him, the Rolling Stones, big band in the 60s, I loved the Roll Gold album, what should I get? And he directed me towards this, and I bought this in 1982, and this is Aftermath. This was my first Stones album, and then I started buying the Rolling Stones. The next one to come along was this one, which I struggled with. I thought Aftermath was good, but not brilliant. I struggled with this one, but I kept with it, and this here now is one of my favourites of the 60s. But the third one that I bought, which I thought was magnificent, was Out of Our Heads. Even though there's only about 3 Stones originals on this, I thought this was better than the both of them. I don't think so now, but still, great album. So it was through him again that I got into the Rolling Stones. Now come around 1983, I was going on my own, so I was buying a lot of singles. I was going out, you know, to clubs and all the rest of it, even though I only was 17, and I was starting to buy more new bands. But all those ones there, the Bowens, the Beatles, the Bowies, the Dylans, the Simon Garfunkel, the Stones, they were the bedrock of my collection, and they have always remained that way. But I did influence him a little bit, and the first band that he really got into, he never bought a single album of them, he got everything taped from me, was the Smiths. He'd stopped buying new music by about 1983 onwards. The This Charming Man single, which is not on this is the UK version, blew the head off me, and I bought every single single from the Smiths since that. And he was off in college in Liverpool, and I used to send him tapes all the time. I remember the very first C60 tape I did of the Smiths. He just thought it was the best thing since sliced bread. And also in the 2000s, this here is not actually new, but I introduced him to it because I got into it myself, and it's Graham Parker and the Rumour. So he got about 3 or 4 CDs made up of Graham Parker music, which he loved. So it's almost like giving back. And the next one and the last one, which blew his mind, was Vampire Weekend. So some of the music that I really enjoyed, he started to like as well. And one thing I will say, if we go back again to the Beatles, every year, every Christmas, you know, we'd spend Christmas with each other, and we always have a debate: who was best, John Lennon or Paul McCartney? And his wife, oh, she just goes on, for God's sake, here we go again. And it's always good fun, and you could see year in, year out, views change. He was going more towards McCartney over the past 2 or 3 years, when he rediscovered Ram and McCartney 1 and Red Rose Speedway, etc. But now I think he's back into Lennon again. So this Christmas will be good fun, so we'll get the debate going. So really, my brother Garth deserves huge credit in the way my music has gone. As I say, he was the one that directed me towards the foundations of my collection, and then once that was done, I just went off on my own to fill in here, there and everywhere, to quote Paul. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope to have another video quite soon. I'll leave a link to Shannon's video below. Okay now, bye bye.